Hey everyone, my name is Gertie Harris and I'm the founder of Fireside at 5. We are here today with Jeff Fierberg, our creative director, and we're going to be talking about video in 2021 and beyond. So for many of you, you know that Fireside at 5 is a community-driven programming and activation collective, and we work with local brands and organizations to inspire, educate, and mobilize through virtual and in-person events. So today with Jeff, he's going to be talking us through the importance of using video in 2021 for both marketing purposes and establishing a strong digital presence. I'm going to let Jeff say a few words about himself before we get into introductions with all of our participants today, and then we'll toss it to Jeff for the official presentation. Jeff?
Hey everyone, really great to see you. Great to meet some new faces. Really good to see some faces I have seen on Fireside Chats before. I've been the creative director for Fireside since April, May of 2020, since pretty close to the beginning. And it's been a really great ride to build this kind of digital community through mainly a time when we couldn't build any other kind of community. So I'm excited to be here and kind of talk a little bit about how 2020 and 2021 have really changed the landscape of how video is being consumed and what it looks like to really be a fully kind of thought out brand digitally using video in 2021.
Wonderful. So I'm going to just take us through all of our participants today. Let's start with Corey. You're a content creator. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're looking to gain from today's chat.
Yeah. So content creator is part of it, but I also I'm an editor at 303 Magazine for music side and a band manager, as well as the content creation for a fitness company. I guess I'm hoping to better leverage video in further pursuits and just kind of how to wrap it around each different aspect and how to differentiate and really target the best way to promote kind of each thing, or like really kind of hit their niche, I guess. And also things I don't know about video in 2021.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah,
We're going to toss it to Lauren Deutsch, founder of Lauren Academic Services. Tell us a bit about yourself. Oh, you're muted. There we go.
Unmute. Okay, sorry about that. We'll try that again. Lauren, I started LAS, or Lauren Academic Services, about 10 years ago, and we provide all kinds of educational services in medical education. Our focus is on representation, minority medical education, specifically in inclusion, diversity, and I'm very, very interested in the video, focus right now, particularly because I find myself explaining over and over again, like what we do or how we do it or what our process is. And so I'm always looking for sort of visual representation or graphic representation. I love the idea of bringing video and color and so forth into, what we do, just to be able to explain more succinctly. So I'm totally looking forward to this.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I'll toss it over to Cassie next. You're a waste diversion specialist. Tell us a little more.
Yes, I am. I work on the Auraria campus downtown for the Sustainable Campus program. I specialize in waste diversion, but our department works across 7 different pillars of sustainability, including water, transportation, energy, etc. We have a unique situation on campus because it is a commuter campus, and there are 3 different universities housed on that campus. So it is immensely difficult to reach the student body in a very effective way because everyone has a different platform, and we are actually a state entity outside of all of those platforms. So I'm really curious what I will learn in this room on how to get people engaged for a broader network, how to make videos fast, short, fun, something that can keep the attention span of a student who's on the move all day long. And then also, I'm really curious if there's advice in this room about accessibility. My marketing team and I have been talking a lot about how to get closed captioning, when is it appropriate to do Spanish, what different platforms like Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter is it appropriate to make those things top of mind when we're producing, and yeah, just generally what you all have to share.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being here. I'm glad you're joining us again.
Yeah, it's nice to see you again.
Likewise. Yoli, I'm going to toss it over to you, which is a nice segue because you actually work as a translator with Cartofront. So I'd love to hear a little bit about what you're trying to gain today.
Hi, so I'm Yoli Rosendo. I am working with Cartofront as their customer success manager, and I also run their social media channels. At Cartofront, we view side-by-side flood codes from private and public insurers. Right now, we just opened up our app in the Miami market, and we're hoping to expand nationwide in the next year. I'm hoping to learn about the new video trends and hopefully be able to bring that back to Cartofront so that we can create videos for our own social media content. We're relatively new and we have just started to, push our stuff out there. So I want to be able to build our brand to something bigger and be able to reach more people.
Absolutely. I think we're going to cover all of that today. So thanks for joining. And last but not least, Ben, I'm going to toss it over to you. You are a builder and a product designer. Tell us about yourself and what you'd like to learn today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I went to school for environmental design and have always liked building things. So I've been working as a project manager for a custom home builder for a little while. And in that have found that I really enjoy kind of the entrepreneurial ideas of having my own business and have fallen in love with product design. So I've been developing a product for the last couple of years. And I'm now at the point where I'm probably going to be launching it this spring. And I think I have most things under wrap on it and pretty well figured out, but have pretty much no background in any type of marketing, videography, branding, anything like that. So I've been just trying to dive in deep, self-educate. As being a startup, I'm kind of just running everything myself. So yeah, I'm just really interested in, I think I like photography, so I kind of have an idea on that, but feel just so lost when it comes to videography and kind of how you get a video that captures someone's interest, but isn't too long or drawn out. So I really feel I'm kind of a sponge in this situation right now and just ready to learn absolutely anything that I can.
Awesome. Well, I think Jeff is your guy for that. So what I'm going to do is set up our presentation now. I'm going to ask everybody if they wouldn't mind going on mute, and Jeff will give his little introduction and then start the discussion after that. So again, if you guys have any questions that pop into your mind during the chat, put them in that private chat feature and we'll get to them in the next 20 minutes after our presentation's over. All right. Ready, Jeff?
I am. You can head straight to that next slide for my intro.
Wonderful.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for sharing all that with me. I think a lot of those questions will be answered in the presentation, and anything that isn't, of course, we'll hit in discussion afterwards. I've been a photographer, videographer since I was about 5 or 6 years old. My father was a reporter, and my godfather was his photographer, and my earliest memories are sitting in their news truck and breaking and pretending to fix the camera over and over. So video has always been a extreme passion of mine. Storytelling and visual representation is really important to me. Working at Sora Digital, which is a company I founded about 5 years ago, the team that I built and that I work with every day believes that good creative always starts with the values of the brand it represents. So whether you are launching a new product that you've been working on for 2 years, creating content for a fitness company, or working to bring more diversity and inclusion to medical academics. What's important in your video content and the answer to your question on what really captivates people is ensuring that the visuals really represent what it is that you stand for. And that can be very easy and it can be very tricky. But overall, and kind of what we're going to walk through today are the different ways to do that, the different types of video that you have at your disposal, the kind of different subgenres of digital video as a big overarching umbrella, and where those uses really fit. And from there, hopefully we can kind of drill down into what works best for you, whether it's making a video for a big downtown campus with 3 different colleges attached to it, making social media videos that you're also translating into Spanish, Kickstarter videos we're going to cover actually right off the bat, so like a product launch type video. All of those things are kind of going to come into play here. But I want to start by kind of talking to you a little bit about why video is important in the first place. So I think everybody's here because they know that video is important, but I really just kind of want to go through the stats. These stats are from a December 2020 white paper I can give it if you're interested, but it's about 55 pages and it's a little bit tedious. So this is too long didn't read on some of their findings. Instagram and Facebook video ads have the largest click-through rate of any digital advertising on the internet. 80% of all internet traffic will be mobile video by 2022. Now that includes Netflix and YouTube and Hulu, but really what that stat should indicate is just how much we're consuming motion and video graphics daily on our pocket devices and beyond. 75 million Americans consumers watch a digital video at least daily. Emails with video in the subject have a 15% higher open rate on average across industry, from academics to consumer goods to agriculture. Bounce rates are lower and conversion rates are higher, up to 10%, when first landing pages contain video. And that's coming from either a direct source or a driven advertising source. It doesn't matter whether you're driving them there with a Facebook ad or they're stumbling upon you because they have your business card. Bounce rates are always lower. Now, there's a clean answer for that, which is people are watching the video, right? If you have a video on your page, you're more likely to have people stay there. So it's really important to look at video as something that you kind of push across all of your channels or across your funnel if you're in e-commerce and sales. Basically, what this indicates is that video largely is one of the most important factors of success, from acquiring people to look at what you're doing to keeping them there once you get them. Go ahead, Gertie, next slide. The truth is there isn't a better medium right now to communicate values and captivate audiences in 2020 or 2021. It's really important to look at video. And while photography might work really well, or really cleanly translated graphics and graphic design, not introducing video and utilizing video really puts you at a disadvantage because everyone else is starting to use video. And more importantly, as a society, video is how we are starting to really, really engage with the digital world. 2021 presents kind of a different and a new frontier. And I kind of talked about this a little bit in the marketing for this chat, and Gertie talked about this a lot on the posts and the marketing for this chat. And a lot of you actually brought it up in your intros. Video's kind of changed quite a bit in the last 6 months. Instagram Reels, TikTok are almost a requirement at this point for companies to really be engaging with audiences at this point under 35. Back in February, March of 2020, that number was probably 25. And so, realistically, we're seeing a huge new trend for these kind of vertical videos that are quick, easy to get out, very easy to articulate and have fun with. And one of the things we'll look at a little bit later is how larger brands are starting to integrate kind of the look, feel, and overall tone or mood of early TikTok and Reels with really, really high-end video and meshing those together to, again, kind of find their values in these short-form videos. So we'll actually look at a case study for that. But I want to kind of start off with social media ads. On the screen there, what you're going to see are actual video ads. These are video ads that I've created or Sora Digital has created, basically examples of kind of what I want to talk about. So when it comes to social media ads, when it comes to short attention-grabbing ads, we're looking at something 15 to 30 seconds. We're talking about a ton of motion. The idea behind these is to communicate very quickly and succinctly the idea and the emotion behind your brand. In the top left, you have Supernola, which is just a fun, youthful brand. It's a snack brand. In the middle, you have a gin. And so it's all about communicating the look, the feel, and the vibe of a cool bar and what it takes to make a very high-end cocktail. I think they're looped enough, Gertie. You can go to the next slide.
Okay.
So these social media ads are really about simple, intriguing ideas that focus on emotion and not value. That might be a little bit tricky to think about when it comes to academic services. But if you think about what you're trying to do, it's really about empowerment, right? So that might be the emotion you're trying to grab onto in that very quick, very dynamic 15 seconds. A couple other examples here. The bottom left, for instance, is a quick GIF made for a Kickstarter campaign or a product launch. Alternate motion techniques work here. GIFs, cinemagraphs, things that may not necessarily need a creator to make are very, very quick and tangible to put out. but really, really important to tie the emotion of the benefit of your brand or your product or your message to the consumer in these, rather than get too in the weeds with too much else. You ask a really good question about accessibility here, Casey. Accessibility is really, really important with these. And one thing that I hope you've noticed is none of these actually have any sort of real copy to them. Really quick, succinct social media ads do best when there's nothing to read. This is all visual stimuli. So we get around some of those dicier questions with such as, do we need closed captioning? Do we need it in Spanish? Because what we're trying to emulate, what we're trying to put forward here is something visually attainable. That being said, closed captioning is something that Facebook and Instagram are starting to auto allow and auto do for you. Those services tend to be a little bit time consuming, and I'll kind of try to continue to cover that through the rest of these different ideas and ways of looking at video. But I wanted to point out that when it comes to very quick, easy video, none of these here have anything more than maybe a quick tagline that would need to be translated into Spanish or another language if you wanted to. Yoli, I don't know if you took note of that as well, but something to look at. I think we're good for the next one. Cool. So now we're talking about video campaigns. Now, these are shorter form videos that actually have lived on websites. And they live on websites almost as like a header image or an above the fold graphic to welcome you. The one on the bottom right there is from Dairy Block, which is a local real estate development here in Denver, if some of that looks familiar to some of you. The one on the right is from a Las Vegas restaurant. These kind of get a little bit longer in form, and they don't just focus on the emotion behind it, but why that emotion is there. So maybe a social media ad for this sushi restaurant wouldn't include all of these people having a good time, but because we have a little bit more space to let these breathe, because we want people to spend more time on our website, what we're looking to do here is actually give them not just that emotional kind of key in, but we're also looking to connect it now more to the values. Values of Dairy Block would be socialization and a place for everybody to come and engage. A restaurant like this, of course, the why is the chef and the food and the experience. These need to be a little bit longer, and most importantly for these should not include GIFs or cinemagraphs. When you're on a website, you expect motion to be smooth. If you give them something stuttery, it more often than not kind of looks like your website's a little bit broken. So all of these have very smooth motion, a lot of higher frame rate, which is a technique that you see with that pepper grinder in the steak there, where things move and then slow down and then speed up. A very common technique to really grab people's attention, and a far more professional technique. You're going to need a nicer camera or to really know how to use that iPhone to get away with some of that. But we can cover some of those ins and outs of technique in discussion. Every single shot counts in these videos, not unlike the social media ads, because ultimately we're still not using copy here. We're still not using voiceover. More often than not with these, we're still communicating almost entirely visually. And the reason for that is it's a website. Adding in that audio actually makes it harder for that website to load. And a lot of times people have different sound settings on their computer. So we still haven't really solicited people to watch this video yet. It's just kind of popping up. And so everything we're doing here, there's a music track on both of these videos, but everything we're doing here is still visual. We're still not necessarily worried about closed captioning. We're still not necessarily translating things. We're really just trying to communicate the values of that brand direct to the consumer demographic we're trying to hit. And I kind of put both of these videos in here because they are two separate demographics. One's like a happy hour, come hang out with your friends. And one is very clearly, this is where you take your business meetings. This is where you come after work. Everybody in that video on the left is in a suit. That's on purpose. So every little detail is communicating here. And pre-production is key. We're going to touch on that at the end. Okay, finally, these are the longer term videos. These are your 3 to 5 minute videos. Think about these more as a full buy-in video, or the kind of larger project that kicks off a video campaign. Both of these are product launch videos that you're watching here. But in general, these are 3 to 5 minutes, and these are where a lot of these questions around accessibility will also come into play, because all of these will have a voiceover and be closed captioned when they're outputted for social media or Kickstarter or YouTube or your website. Wherever you're going to host these, there's more here than just visual stimuli. The one on the left has some graphics, the one on the right has some titles. Both of these have voiceovers. You're not hearing them because you're hearing me, but they both have them. When you're making a video of this length, 3 to 5 minutes, that's a long time. It is difficult to grab somebody's attention for a full 3 to 5 minutes, especially in 2021. Everything that's come before us is under 60 seconds. So we're literally asking people to triple their attention rate, and it needs to be important. And it probably is if we're sinking this kind of time into it. The most important thing you can do to make these videos successful is called a 10-second sparkler. The idea here, and Gertie, I don't know if we can advance back a slide and then come back when I say so we can watch those first 10. Go ahead.
Or the first 10 of the, yeah.
Yeah. So if you watch the first 10 of these videos, they really try to grab your attention very quickly, right? This one on the right is all about, kind of looking overhead at some waves. This one on the left is zooming out from a mountain. Then we get into some very, very fast motion on both of them. We're right at about 10 seconds here. What we're trying to do in those 10 seconds is really grab your attention. You'll notice that we didn't introduce the main point of this video until after that 10 seconds, right? Probably around 15 to 18 was when you saw that product launch. That's because that first 10 seconds is about grabbing you. If you can do a really nice first 10 seconds, people will stick through the end of it, especially with these videos. Where these videos live, we're asking people to watch. This is where we're sending them to get the full story. If we're talking about maybe a gym equipment company, this is where we're talking about all of the values and benefits of that company. Maybe the new product, maybe how that new product really interacts with the whole line and the core value proposition of that company. But because of that, we really want to grab them, and then we have time to let them know what's special about what we're doing. Maybe it's the color of the jeans. Maybe it's how that backpack fits together, right? But it all starts with that first 10 seconds. And from there, we explain the value proposition and the problems, the emotion, and the brand as a solution. This is your full sales pitch here. Now, I've shown you kind of 3 different looks at video, and I think what's important is that when you look at a big long video like what we're watching now, you use all of this content that you're shooting for the long one to make all the other ones that have come before it at the same time. If you're doing this right, if you're planning it properly, if you're putting the right time in or working with a creative partner and have planned properly and spent the right time on it, you're getting all 3 of these from the same shoot and the same edit session. So you're not paying for 3 separate things. That's really important because you need the same content at the beginning in those social media ads or posts to get them to this video. If you don't have strong content attracting them to the Kickstarter campaign or the web page for sign up or some sort of announcement, they're never going to get to the end video. So it's important to kind of think of all this as an ecosystem. Video in 2021 and probably for the rest of the digital future that we can at least foresee here is about building video ecosystems and building consistency across whatever it is you're communicating so that what they see on the front end is represented in the back end. All right, let's get to TikTok. That's probably what we're all here for. Vertical video, and for the sake of kind of the rest of this, vertical video pretty much applies to any of the big 2 and Snapchat is kind of its third cousin. TikTok, Instagram Reels and Facebook Stories and Instagram Stories and IGTV, all of those vertical video formats are having their moment. They're actually all 3 of the things that we just talked about are fitting into that space in a way that they've never done before. Growing up, studying film, going to film school, working with filmmakers both in and out of the film industry, and now kind of where I work in branded content, vertical video has always been an ugly stepchild. Filmmakers didn't want to make it. Brands didn't really know how to utilize it or leverage it. And it's largely gone completely ignored until I would say the last 6 months. And in the last 6 months, every video and photo shoot that we've worked on, it has not only been a request, but has been the majority of the planning that goes into that video shoot. It's very important. It's clearly something everybody's taken note of. And it's really worth your time to think about how any of the last examples that we talked about would also fit into a vertical system. Something that we're starting to see a lot, and this is mainly for the larger brands, and we'll look at one in like the next slide, is we're starting to see brands think about video differently, where instead of just assembling a campaign video like what we just looked at, and the pieces and the parts that go with it, like the social media ad and the landing page ad, video, we're also starting to see people think about maybe kind of building block kits so that their content creator or social media team that may not be as well versed in video have different pieces to pull at where they can edit themselves in a quick and easy, editor on an iPad or an iPhone, and make really high quality branded stuff with those same kind of building blocks of shots that we use for that campaign video. That's a really, really great and interesting idea that is being used by brands who have a ton of money for video to save money on video. But I think it is the most beneficial thing that a small company, a one-man startup, a company that maybe isn't as focused on marketing as an e-commerce brand or a restaurant chain, which we're going to see in a second, could do to really maximize their video output. So I wanted to kind of show you what this looks like in practice. So what I did is I went to a brand who I really like following on social media, and I just kind of looked at what they had to put together basically a case study in how this looks. So I chose Chipotle because most people know what it is and most people like it. Go ahead, Gertie. Cool. These are 3 videos that were basically posted next to each other. On the right, on the far right, Gloves to Bags is a video series that they produced. They had a full film crew come in, and it really tells the story of their sustainability effort. It's highly produced, it's beautifully done, and it really is explaining the values of the brand, the sustainability that Chipotle has really made the core of its mission, and how it is really done in practice in the restaurants. Basically, all of their gloves become their trash bags, and they basically have a self-sustaining closed loop of recycling, which is rad. But what's really rad is that this 2-minute video sits directly next to that weird avocado art. Gertie, if you want to go back forward so we can see
guys.
it. Go for it. No, it's...
Is it there?
I'm talking quickly.
Do you see it?
There it is.
There we go. Hey.
Oh, there you go. On the left there, you have kind of a very cool TikTok of a avocado artist who's just making cool art out of avocado. This is for World Guacamole Day. And in the middle, we have a TikTok trend. We have a flatbed TikTok trend that was very clearly done like in 20 minutes in the moment. It's awesome. It's great. But what's really interesting is the titles that you see overlaying on that are branded. They are using Photoshop or Illustrator to create branded titles that are in the right font, that have the right color, so that it still looks and feels like Chipotle. Of course, we have the chip bag in the back. They've thought about this, but what they're doing is they're utilizing assets across the board on all of these to make it look like the same brand. If you pay attention to that avocado brand, or the avocado ad on the far left there, I believe we're coming to the end of it where it actually has a really nicely branded video outro for World Guacamole Day. That also kind of ties this together. But you can see that their fonts are still on brand. They're not just utilizing the app. They have graphic support. They are working hard to make all of this seem as a cohesive package, even though they're very different things. Yeah, there's that Happy National Guacamole Day outro. They have a nice fade in. They have actually a very beautiful styled shot of that guacamole. That's not normally how that looks when you just pull the top off. They worked at that, or they have an asset library is actually what happened, because I know the people that work in that department. So this is what the big brands are doing. And in general, you can look at video and look at what the big brands are doing as the best way for you to get ahead of the curve, right? This is how they're working with larger budgets. This is how they're working with maybe a little bit more time and bandwidth to do these things. But ultimately, we can take those in practice and we can turn them and use them for ourselves. You can hit the next one, Gerd. How do you do this? How is it possible to emulate this and not spend millions? If you have millions, you can actually ignore this and you can call me after. And we can talk about it and just work on it together. But realistically, where I think video is most important is for the companies that don't, right? Chipotle, Red Bull, the big companies have this figured out because they have a full-time staff that just do this all the time. And nobody on this chat really does. Again, if I'm wrong, just call me, we'll talk. So how is it that we can do that? Well, there are a couple of ways to kind of take this next step. And what I want to focus on is what it looks like to work with a creative or work as the creative in your company to get the most out of your time and your effort to make these really successful. So here are a couple of tips. Approach a creator, or if you're an internal content creator, Corey, approach your boss with an idea of what you think you need to do. Come up with that kind of first look at that campaign. We need a 3 to 5 minute video for this product that I'm launching in the spring, summer. Something like that, Ben. Here are the benefits that it needs to have. Here's what its kind of value proposition is. Here's why this product will sell. Here's why this product is special. You don't have to have everything mapped out. The whole point of good video and the whole way that all of this gets made is collaboration, whether it's internal collaboration with your own team or external collaboration with a partner. Video takes collaboration. And whether you're the video maker or not, that collaboration needs to take place in order for all of the expertise to come out. So have an idea of what you need, but don't feel like you have to map everything out. That being said, everything should be mapped out before you begin. Pre-production is key to getting the most out of anything you do, whether you're doing it by yourself on an afternoon or you're hiring somebody to do it and paying them. Making sure that every step is thought through, making sure you have a script in place and you know kind of what you need all the way through those examples, what you need in vertical and what you don't, is how you don't feel in 3 months like you didn't get enough out of that time, right? Whether you're doing it yourself or you're hiring somebody, time is the name of the game when it comes to video. Those 3 to 5 minute videos I showed you are a really great example of how much time these take. Both of those were shot in about a week and edited for about 6. They take a long time. Now, that doesn't mean all day, every day. It wasn't around the clock editing for 6 weeks, but it was touching that video every day for 6 weeks, sometimes for 5 hours, sometimes for 1. But that video got touched every day for that long to bring it to market, to make it look like that. And part of the reason why they were successful in that short is because we had pre-planned everything. That backpack video on the right that had all those travel videos, I don't know if you remember those. Those videos were collected over the year previous by all the employees of that company because we had already planned it out that far in advance. And we literally said, hey, every time you go on vacation, anytime you go on vacation, no matter where it is, take video of travel. Whatever travel means to you, take it, grab it, upload it to this Google Drive folder. And we had it when it came time to edit. That cut down our budget immensely because we didn't have to fly to all those places. But what it really shows is an attention to detail in the pre-production stage so that we had that really great opener without spending a ton of money on it by just making a quick ask of our employees. If you are looking to hire somebody, if you're sitting there and you're thinking, I could maybe use some help with this, look for versatility in the portfolio. Look for somebody who's worked across brands. That is something that I really believe strongly in. It's made me a much better creator because I don't just make food videos and I don't just make social media ads for sports drinks. I also work with nonprofits and I make capital campaign videos for a big ask that they're making to donors. I work in Kickstarter where the kind of format of video is very formulaic and you have to kind of work really hard to make it cool because everybody does kind of the same thing. Versatility makes a stronger maker, right? The same way that cross-training across teams and learning new skills makes people better employees and more fulfilled workers and team members. The same is true for somebody you're bringing in from the outside. Make sure that they're just kind of looking at the whole picture there. When it comes to the content you're making, focus on your story. Viral is awesome and not something that anybody can promise you. It's not promisable. And if it is promisable, it's probably for the wrong reasons. What's important is that you connect your story to your demographic and you know what your demographic is and you know who you're talking to from that pre-production point all the way through the end. Don't lose sight of that. And finally, and I know I've said this before, but it really is the basis of really good video presence and digital presence for not millions of dollars. Figure out how to utilize video assets, those shots that you take multiple times in multiple ways. Make sure that you're thinking about vertical framing or just shooting it twice or having somebody shoot it twice if it's that important. Part of pre-production should be figuring that out, but building that video library to continue to respond to the market to continue to make sure that you have what you need to put out quicker videos saves you from spending too much money on multiple video shoots a year by just planning ahead and then building out that library as you would build out any other library or knowledge base in your company. Think of it like the institutional knowledge that you pass on to, a new team member. It should be that important to be building up those clips continually, to have a place where all of your content lives and is accessible to you to give to other creators as potential other pieces of B-roll. Make sure that's built into your contracts if you're bringing someone in. Cool. That was my time to talk with everybody muted. I think I hit a lot of your questions. I know I tried to hit a bunch of the questions that were given from the people on the live stream. There are a couple I'd like to start with while Gertie kind of queues up all the questions you may have written during that presentation. The first one is, what are some tips or tricks to learning how to do this for social media? I think Skillshare and Masterclass and a whole bunch of really, really, kind of well-known online skill building platforms are great and really, really important. In general, those are going to teach you how to use the softwares or your camera to kind of push in, what it is you're doing. And that's important, but those are just tools. What really is important is the idea. What really is important to good video is actually what you do before you pick up the camera. So the best thing I can tell you for that is to practice. Make them, work with them. I think in general, what is important is finding ways to continue to hone your skill set. There are a couple of really, really great apps that I'm blanking on that work well on iPad and iOS. LoomCube, I think is what it's called, but I'm going to get some links to Gertie and we can send them out after the chat for quick, easy, sometimes free or very affordable tools for you to get making and editing small videos on your own without a lot of startup that also have a great amount of tutorials on how to use that software. So that's the first one. The second one that I definitely didn't answer is how do you get started in the film industry if you don't know anybody there? And clearly I didn't touch on the film industry at all. Right now, that's a very difficult question to answer because the film industry has always been pretty insular and is even more so now with COVID. What I would say is the best way to get into the film industry once COVID is lifted is to figure out how to be a production assistant and from there to really be loyal to the people that work with you and to make sure that you are constantly putting your best foot forward and meeting not only the person that hired you, but the person that hired them. That's how I built a lot of my contacts in the film industry. It's a lot of hard work. It is very long days, but if you're looking to do that, that would be a great way to do it. If you're local to Denver, because I don't know who asked it, there are some really, really cool productions that are happening in Denver and Boulder that are not necessarily industry or union that you could probably get a good grip on. There are some Facebook groups for filmmakers that I know about specific to Denver, although I'm sure if you live in a metropolitan area, that's true for you as well, that I would make sure that you're involved in. And I think I hit everything else. So now I'll open it up to questions. Guys, go ahead and unmute.
Is everyone off mute? Almost. There we go.
Yeah.
Awesome. First of all, Jeff, thank you so much. That was an incredible presentation and I learned a ton and I feel like I know a lot about marketing, so thank you. Sure. Let's jump into some questions. You guys have any to start off with?
Okay, I do. I got
Go for it.
I'm first of all, so helpful. I'm so excited and I know that Sharice is watching this. So hello, Sharice. And yeah, 100% right. You've been saying this all along. I'm eating sprout. I got it. So I just, the question is, what are your thoughts about who is in your videos? So like, you've got, especially if you have confidentiality issues or things like that. Like, so obviously written consent and so forth, but like barring that, what do you recommend for, what do you typically recommend?
So that's a really interesting question. And I think your specific niche may be kind of a more difficult one to address as more of a one-off. In the past, when I've made videos for either nonprofits that work around medical data or nonprofits that work around mental health or other things that may be HIPAA protected or even just sensitive topics, More often than not, we do one of two things. The first is we find somebody who's willing to sign a waiver and be involved. And the second is we use what's called compositing characters. I did a VR project for Hunger Free Colorado where we told the story in VR of what it's like to shop on food stamps. And we wanted to tell that story from a very specific perspective of they have two women that have worked in the program that both have PhDs, are white women that are under 40, that do not look or act as a kind of stereotypical person who's affected with hunger, and neither of them would sign that waiver. What we did find is that they were willing to share with me the story and talk with me and work with me and the team to create kind of a composite character of who they were. And they then had final kind of say on the script to make sure they didn't feel like it was too much. And what we found is that was a really great way to interact properly with kind of the demographic we were trying to work with while still protecting some of that anonymity. The other flip side of that kind of question, of course, is representation in video. I think it's really important to show a lot of representation in video and find ways to make sure that you are being inclusive with your casting as much as humanly or physically possible. Sometimes, because of budget, that isn't really possible. A lot of times on smaller productions, you're at the whim of a friend that you can call in a favor to. I'll kind of reference Facebook again. There is a large group in any metropolitan city around the globe that I've ever been in that are willing to work for experience and practice as they're learning and growing, that allow you to tap into people that may not be that friend that's already been in 4 videos, and may allow you to reach a new demographic as well if you think about marketing, by giving somebody an opportunity to try to be an actor or an actress, and find ways to be involved in that. The same is true on the production side. If you're looking for just someone to help, there's always people learning and always people looking to work on these kinds of things. So in general, that's kind of both sides of the coin there. Does that help?
Yeah, it is. It's helpful, really helpful. Thank you.
If you want to talk more about like the specifics of some of the medical or academic stuff, I've definitely done a few. We can take it offline.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to jump in with the question?
I had a question, and also, again, just wanted to say that was what a nice crash course to kind of, you don't know what you don't know until you know a little. So
yeah, Ben.
That was great.
Thanks for joining.
Yeah, for sure. And so, yeah, so I'm pretty excited, fired up, feeling a little less like I'm just jumping into water over my head.
Good.
But I guess one thing I was thinking through that I just really hadn't at all was the formatting difference between the vertical videos and horizontal videos. To acquire that, are you literally just doubling the amount of content you have to make, or is there a way you can shoot in a manner where you can kind of utilize that in both formats?
Sure. That depends.
Okay.
And what it depends on is actually the equipment you have. So with higher end cameras and professional cameras, as well as depending on how you're using maybe an iPhone, there is a way to basically frame a subject so that you can see the stuff on the horizontal and then crop in on the vertical. And most, if not all, video softwares at this point are incorporating ways for you to do that very quickly and succinctly. What's interesting about the pre-production stage that I'm really stressing here is practicing some of that. That is a really difficult skill set to master as a one-off, your first time doing it. And if it's something that you're going to jump into alone, I recommend playing with a few different ways so you start to understand what shots will work for that and what shots you literally will just need to do 2 shots of.
Okay, makes sense.
My experience, which is super varied across different industries, it's about maybe 75 to 25 things that I can shoot just once and use twice, and things that I literally have written down to shoot in a vertical on my shot list or in my plan for the day. When we go over our plans, I know, because I've done all that pre-production, what shots I just know need to be done twice, and you just do it twice. And I have kind of figured out, for the most part, what shots don't, with a little bit of experience and practice. And then because I'm me, there's typically like a 5 to 10% gray area where I don't really know how it's going to work in the edit, and I'm going to shoot both anyway because I'd rather have it and not use it, right? So it's about 75 to 25, I'd say, for me.
Okay, cool. And then as far as you're saying, some equipment makes that easier. Would like a full frame camera help with that aspect of cropping? Would probably be easier
Sure.
than that.
If your camera output is recording in like a 4K or above,
Yep.
and you're looking to output in 1080 or below, 1080 is kind of standard still for YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, then that would work for you. Yep. Because
Cool.
if you think about 4K, it's literally twice as big as 1080. So you can crop it down to 50% and move that frame around. And likewise, when you go to vertical video is just 1080 flipped upside down or flipped 90 degrees right now. So you can basically do the same thing. So yes, it would.
Nice.
iPhones also shoot in 4K, depending a bit on what you're shooting. Where this gets tricky is in some of that frame variability stuff that we were looking at the beginning. When it comes to higher frame rates, most cameras tend to lose some of that dimensionality when you use them. So a lot of full frame cameras will shoot in 4K, but not at higher frame rates. So those shots may have to be done twice. That's the kind of weird nitty gritty technical stuff that practice and experience will help with.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to toss this over to Corey, Cassie, or Yoli. Do any of you three have questions?
I do.
Awesome.
Hey, Corey.
I guess it's more from like a content creation standpoint, but how do you kind of find yourself, just depending on what they want, how do you find yourself kind of pricing out per like the longer form videos or like the TikTok content? Because some people will want just like, yeah, let's just focus on TikTok, let's just do that. But like, how would you kind of approach, assuming that you go into it? Yeah. Just how would you approach that?
Sure. So I think there's a lot of ways to do it, and I'll be the first to say that my way of doing it is one of probably the leading ways that people do it, but certainly not necessarily the way that most content creators I know do this. But I do flat rate pricing. So what I'm looking to do when I'm working with a client is, before we get into the price, I know what you're looking for. And we've kind of identified a few styles that work with you, right? We've looked at maybe some of the videos you've seen here today, and we have talked about, I liked that gin video. I really like that Chipotle TikTok with the avocado, so that I have some sort of frame of reference for how much time it's going to take. There is no rhyme or reason to how much work is going to go into a video based on length. Especially when you get into these highly stylized things. That gin commercial took a very long time to make, 2 different days of shooting and about a week of editing, right? So that one is actually a longer term investment time-wise. And what I basically do at that point is a rough idea of hours that it'll take me to make it based on experience, times an hourly rate, get you a flat rate quote. I like to do flat rate quotes because it really simplifies the messaging around making sure it's perfect. I don't want to nitty gritty talk hours if that first rough cut doesn't feel right to you. But that doesn't mean I don't get bit and end up putting another 40 hours into a video because we weren't quite aligned on that. I like to do that because it really stresses my attention in that pre-production phase. My ability to put out that video on budget for me making what I make, because I don't go over unless like halfway through shooting, they go, actually, we want an hour-long documentary. We don't want a 60-second TikTok. This is for Sundance. Unless it's something drastic in that scope, I don't charge more if we go over that hour allotment. So what it does is it puts me in that perfect kind of customer service point of making sure that before I pick up a camera for you, I know what you want, I know where it's going, and I know what's expected. It's not perfect, but I find that it makes for better working relationships. What I'm always looking to do is figure out what they want first before they get that kind of quote from me. I know plenty of other people that just have here's the rate and we can do whatever you want and let's jump in with both feet. They might really, really enjoy that because they don't ever feel like they got bid on a project because they had to put in more hours than they expected. There's definitely pros and cons here, but that's how I do it.
It's a good question. Cassie or Yoli, do you guys have questions?
Did I answer enough accessibility? Why don't I ask you that?
I had a different question, but yes, I would love to hear about accessibility in terms of when it's appropriate
Sure.
to use different languages on the slides or on the text.
Yeah. Why don't you ask your other question and I'll answer them both.
Okay, so my other question is in terms of educational videos, they are maybe different than promotion of a project. Something that I'm doing is a compost rollout on our entire campus, and I have to educate very swiftly 50,000 students on proper ways of sorting their waste in under 2 minutes.
Great.
How
Super
do
fun.
I approach that?
Awesome question. Really good question. I'm going to start with that one, and then we'll hit accessibility. And Yoli, you're going to check my accessibility answers because it's what you do. So you're going to have 2 answers for that one, hopefully, unless I just nail it. Educational videos are a little bit different in some ways, but in other ways, they're not. When we are talking about digital video, when it comes to what we've talked about for the last 50 minutes or so, all of those videos have a goal to them. And their goal is for you to buy something. You're making a video where the goal is for them to learn something. But more than learning it, they have to practice it, right? It's not strictly educational, it's actually behavior modification. So how you do that is a really good question. I think you really need to focus on probably looking at doing more of like a social media stylized one that's really quick and easy to understand. I don't know everything you're doing with the compost waste, but we could talk about it. But something under 30 seconds even, that's really, really quick and straightforward for people who may be already familiar with kind of that compost idea. It's Denver after all, it's around. And then I think you need more of that like 1.5 to 1:45 that explains that why we're doing this and links that directly to the behavior. People don't change behavior for no reason. Good habits and environment are the main kind of idea behind that behavior modification. But when it comes to something as big as what I think you're doing at Auraria, they have to make their own environment and their own decision to do it. And doing that is going to be linking it to why it's important. So I do think you're going to have to reach into why compost is rolling out. What is important about compost that it allows us to do differently as a society than just recycling? Denver isn't the best at recycling always, but you do live in a state that is a little bit more politically invested in sustainability, at least on the surface. And it's going to be about taking that surface idea and that surface accountability and pushing it down into making them want to do more. Super easy, right? Probably not.
Behavior change, so easy.
Yeah, I think that's really what it's about, is you need to link the emotion that they feel around sustainability and why it's important to the very quick and easy way that they can sort their own waste. Mm-hmm. As for accessibility, I think that anytime your product is something that is broad enough that it could hit a demographic of people where English isn't the first language, or targeted enough where you're trying to be inclusive to multiple languages, you should be including some sort of translation in your captions. I recognize that is easier said than done. I'm sure if we could all click one button and have every caption put into any language possible, we would do it. But in reality, it does take work, it does take time, or it takes money. We can have somebody like Yoli who is literally there to help translate as part of that role. And then there are services that will help as well. But what I would say is anytime you can make something more accessible, you should do it. And there's probably a law of diminishing returns on how many times you do that via money or time. But what's great about digital advertising and really the web as a whole is about 5 years ago, it became really commonplace for websites, social media networks, and advertising platforms to be able to read the default language that is present on your web browser. So if I have Spanish as my default language on Google Chrome, then anybody has the ability to serve me a specific Spanish version. And because of that technology, I think that doing that is a really great way to make sure that your message is seen by more than just people who speak one language, which is always, I think, the number one goal of marketing, right? Marketing is about creating and finding more people for whatever your product is, whether that product is gym equipment or academic services or sorting your waste, because that is itself a product. That behavioral modification can be thought of a bit like a product. What's important is making sure that anybody can view it without any sort of barrier, or as low a barrier as possible. So maybe I can rustle up a couple of translation services that'll help as well. I've done this before with a lot of videos where we've basically hired out a translator who's basically given me back the script to write in, and I've worked with them a little bit. But Yoli, how did I do?
I think you did really well. I also think that there's kind of like an emotional aspect when something is catered towards your demographic and your own language, because it's making you feel like you're included and you're understood. And so whereas maybe you don't have a parent who speaks English and a different language is their first language, it helps them understand your product, and maybe the child to help them, get their parent to understand. Especially like in universities, it's really important to have parents of different speaking languages know what's going on, because if they don't know what's going on, they're unable to help their student. And the same thing goes with products. There are products, that are advertised only in an English-speaking market, and if you go to Mexico, they don't know what you're talking about because it wasn't advertised to them, and it wasn't advertised to the Spanish-speaking communities in the United States.
Perfect point. Thank you. Awesome.
Yoli, do you have any questions before we jump off?
Yeah, I just had one I don't know if it's super quick.
Okay.
I know that a lot of what you've showed us is real life scenarios. But what are your thoughts on like animated videos, like animated short videos that companies can make?
Sure. You did see one of those, the social media ad in the top left for that granola company is all animated. Mm-hmm. I think animation is a kind of great way to build up that video library. In fact, actually, if we go to that Chipotle case study as well, that end slide on the guacamole on the avocado was also actually an animation that they have kind of ready and preloaded on their phone to cut into anything they want. Mm-hmm. So animations, transitions are really great ideas, specific to kind of what you're doing. I think having animations that maybe explain what it is that you do are super helpful and very easy to make once, mm-hmm. export in both vertical and horizontal, and use over and over again as different pieces in the pipeline. If you think about a product, let's just take, for instance, the idea of a backpack, because we did this with animations on the backpack. If your backpack has 3 different defining kind of value propositions, having a short animation that kind of points to that on the bag as its own little clip that you then use both in that video, but also as the intro to a little TikTok where your designer really shows it off, or a live Instagram Ask Me Anything where you kind of use it as an intro to really dive deep into how the design of that bag worked. You've made that animation once and you have it used every single place that it makes sense. And by doing that, you've also ensured that messaging is consistent across the board, right? Mm-hmm. It never gets lost in translation what that benefit is, what that feature is, and then what you're talking about after it. I could see a lot of value for that for Cartofront. I think it's definitely there because what you're talking about specifically, and I know a little bit about where Yoli works, a little bit. What you're doing is a little bit complex, right? The same is true probably for sorting waste. You could do a lot with a little with some small animations there, and you can make those animations very easily yourself if they're simple enough in Canva or Photoshop if you have access, or any number of other cool apps that'll help you take icons and move them, or draw dotted lines on a photo to point at a feature. So definitely, yeah, everything I said for video really applies to any sort of motion graphic. Animation is absolutely included in that.
Thank you.
Jeff, we've got 3 rapid fire questions from people watching at home.
Cool.
Okay, ready?
Are any my mom?
No, none of your mom, sorry.
Great, let's do it.
All right, first one's from Charisse. She said, editing pains show up for me. How do organizations find reputable video editors without breaking the budget? Any good websites or places to
the best editors I know aren't on websites.
Okay.
I would look for editors who are honestly going to charge you a product fee or a project fee, and not necessarily an hourly fee. Ella Harris is definitely someone you should talk to.
Good shout out. All right, next one. Sending a story idea. This is from MK Morrow. Sending a story idea to media usually is a news/press release. Does media accept and/or prefer video news releases, or providing B-roll since newsroom may be short-staffed? It's an interesting point.
That is an awesome question that does not have a super straightforward answer from my experience. I'm in Denver. Denver is a medium to large media market. And in the medium to large media markets and probably smaller, yes, anytime you have B-roll that you can make available to a digital newsroom or a newsroom that also has a web presence, they will almost always take it and love it, and it will probably help them communicate your story. Newsrooms are absolutely strapped, and anytime you can save them a little bit of cost and also ensure that your messaging is, again, consistent with what you want it to be, it's a win-win. So video press releases I've seen work really, really well, and also not. It's probably industry specific. Where I've seen it work best is in food and agriculture. But making mention in a press release that there is video available and photos available, I have always heard is a plus from everybody I've worked with in PR.
I've heard that too.
Yeah, if that doesn't answer your question fully because we're on rapid fire, grab my email and let's chat because I'll help.
Last one is, what's your number one takeaway you can give to brands and companies looking to start video for the first time? If you had to pick one.
Brands looking to start video for the first time are almost always guilty of not leaving enough time for that pre-production to work properly. Video takes time. It's not like a photo shoot. And the number one thing that I see bite companies when they first start especially is trying to roll things out too quickly with video and trying to rush it. Things can get made quickly and things can be good quickly, but to get the most out of that video and that expense, because whether you're doing it internal or you're paying someone, there is expense to video, is to slow down and have that timeline to make sure what you're producing is right, not just for that moment, but in longevity. And so that is your takeaway. Slow down, take time, think it through, work on that pre-production, and think about every place that video could be used and make sure it fits.
Awesome.
That was a good one to end on.
That was from Connor, so he's probably watching somewhere.
Thanks, Connor.
Thanks, Connor. All right, well, we are at our 6 p.m. mark, so we are done here, but I just want to thank everybody, and I want to thank Jeff especially for this incredible presentation. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you all.
That was awesome. That was amazing. And we will all see you soon. We'll be doing a blog post with some takeaways. So make sure you look out for that. And if anyone's looking for Jeff's info, we'll link that in a wrap-up email. Cool.
Totally. Please get in touch if you need anything.
Thanks.
I'm happy to work with anybody, but I'm also